Hello? Oh, wow, that's scary. So I would like to talk about reloading plugins. I have a PR proposing a solution for that, and wanted to share some. I wanted to share some ideas about how I solved some of the problems there, and hopefully that will help people to review the code, and we can get a discussion if we need to about the things that I've done and decided to do. So this to me represents ATS. So it's lots of firepower, but if you run out of bullets and won't have a bug or need to reload, it's not easy to do. So you need to drain and restart the whole process. And this is one of the incentives to have reloadable plugins. Very often we need a single line change, and we need to plan ahead to push that change, and it's lots of work. Now with all the modern and cool tools about configuration management and managing whole VIPs and all that, this is not as important anymore because things are managed differently, but still it will be useful to have a mechanism to reload without restarting the whole process. So what the goal of having a reloadable plugin is basically to be able to execute new code, plugin code, without restarting the whole process. And also we wanted to unload the old code when we are done with it.
Is that for memory management concerns, or what's the point of unloading the old version?
I mean, if ATS runs for a long time and we keep on logging, resources, yep. So the plugins are dynamic shared objects that are usually the way we specify new versions is by using a configuration file. So currently the only way we could use is to basically specify a new plugin in a new config and then reload, for example, like using traffic control config reload. Before I started working on this, I actually played a little bit with the loader available on different platforms and discovered some problems. So the first one is that while the process is running and you just replace the shared object file and you load again, it doesn't want to load the new content. So this is due to internal reference counting inside the implementation of the dynamic loader, and it doesn't actually load anything. We actually had a solution for Linux, but that didn't actually, it's not available on other systems. The other problem was that on different platforms, the reference counting works slightly differently based on whether we use symbolic links in the name of when specifying the file or not. So I tested on 3 platforms, and they gave me different results. So in the previous summit, we actually discussed that problem, and we came up with a solution to temporarily copy files to a runtime directory and then load from there. And as soon as we unload the shared object, we remove that temporary directory. And I decided to use this nice ATS UID to make sure that every load uses a unique directory. I mean, I don't think it hurts. Yeah, I don't know. There is no reason. I think you can delete it, but I just thought when you unload it, it's nice to clean then, not beforehand. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, right. I mean, Yeah, I actually considered it to have it clean every traffic server restart. We could do that. Maybe we can remove it right away. That's another solution. Oops. So when we use plugin code, there are three major places where we actually from where we call we use symbols from the shared object. So first is during the plugin load, we call functions that the plugin defines to load, initialize, and then later, even for destroy, we need to use a symbol from the dynamic object. We call functions from the state machine while handling HTTP transactions. And one extra place is that when we schedule continuations like events in the future, we may call, we may use symbols from the shared object. For example, the plugin can create a continuation that will be triggered, will be. I'm sorry? Right, yeah. So for that, we need to guarantee that the plugin is loaded when we do any of those three types of calls. And this implementation uses a reference counting around the dynamic object. No, I reload everything. I'll show you some pictures and I'll show you why. Initially, I actually used the URI rewrite reference counting, but right. So I initially used that, but I want to show you something and explain why I did it. I mean, the code actually can use both. I implemented the same interface, acquire and release, so we can change things. But at some point, I decided to have a different reference counting, and I'll show you why. That's okay. I mean, I'll show you, so we can. I mean, I actually got the point that have two reference counting is not very maybe fragile. That's a valid point. But I'll show you why. In this slide, actually, since we are handling different sets of plugins loaded at different times, one of them is always current, similarly like the configuration internal structures, and the rest are actually not used. So new transactions will use the current one, and the rest will not be used by the new transactions, will be used by the already started transactions. So for that, when we run continuation create, when we create a continuation, we need to know in which context we are running. So for that, initially I thought I would add, we'll use a continuation create parameter for that, but then Alan pointed me to a different solution, which I liked, is to use a thread local variable to basically, without having needing an extra parameter to pass that content.
What is that context parameter point at?
So it points to the DCO, the dynamic shared object. And that object is actually reference counted. So no, it's a structure that wraps that and handles all. It's a class that wraps hides the details of that loading, and then it maintains the same interface that we already used for the configuration, the URL rewrite. So it does release and acquire and release. So when we get, when we do new continuation, create continuation, the create continuation loop checks the plugin context and actually does acquire.
Do you have an effort continuation track?
Yes. Yeah. So it's like a generic name context. So we can use it for anything.
That's what we're finding for plugin for ATS.
Okay. I mean, we can see if we can reuse things. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about that one. It seems like that's the way.
So this is like a simplified diagram of who is calling what, and it represents the three places where we call functions. We use symbols from the DSO, and I show two instances of the two plugins. So all the arrows are basically showing how the calls are actually using the symbols from the DSO. For example, I mean, the names are not the same like in the actual source code on purpose, so we can actually kind of abstract. I mean, it's not exactly the same as we have it in the core now. But usually, the state machine calls a function from the DSO that says run and handle response. The loader calls init plugin, init instance, delete plugin, I mean done plugin and delete instance. So this is the green one, the instance one. So when we make these calls, the plugin DSO needs to be loaded. And where that DSO is located and which version to use is actually defined in the remap on the bottom, in the config. So there is a connection between that, logical connection between that two. The second plugin instance shows extra variety of things that we can do. So for example, continuation 2 and 3 are using the same callback, which is defined in plugin 2. So the event handler is called, should be present when we make that call, and that plugin DSO should be loaded too. So there is the colors don't show pretty well here, but this plugin set is basically what is loaded in one configuration reload. So I always try to handle all the plugins reloaded with one configuration reload together, so I can keep track of things and unload to reload call functions. So the next slide is showing how different instances of the same plugin look. So basically it's the same picture and all the, so in the first one we spawn the continuation 1, and the second one we have another continuation pointing to the same callback 1.3. What I actually missed to mention in the previous slide is that continuation 4 is actually a continuation created to handle events in the future, for example. So that can actually outlive the URL rewrite the config object. We can actually, the state machine, what Leif mentioned, is that state machine increases a counter on the remap structure, config structure down below. And when all the state machines that are actually referencing that, if they all disappear, we'll release the config. But some of the continuation may continue, like if you say, call me in 3 hours, we need to keep the plugin configuration up after that.
So in this example, you're saying if you have a single state machine, it can call it different plugin.
No, it's not. This is just it's not a single. No, it's not a single. It's basically this signifies the module, like the piece of code that calls that. I mean, it's not really. Couldn't find a picture that is like multiple.
That's a crazy use case. You're saying that with your remap plugin that sits some run stuff without.
I mean, I am saying that it's just possible. So when I thought about all the different.
It's possible. Everything is possible. Why that's on a different use case?
Well, I would think something like background testing, right? This transaction comes in, or some of the other intercepts or multiplexers. I got a connection that comes in, I say, oh, I need to multiply this out. So I start other transactions that that are going to do this, the original traction goes away along with all my other information. You get a reload in the middle of that.
So those multiplex transactions, what are they going to return the results?
They're not. They're whole goal of them is to do an upstream call to the beacon cover.
Also, we've worked on plugins that actually call sync things with some other extra service. So, for example, MDBM in Yahoo, we store things into them like every 5 minutes or 1 minute. So that needs to be, if you say, call me every 5 minutes, and during that time we reload.
Was a plugin or just a periodic task event? That would never go away.
No, it will go away.
That will go away.
I mean, that's why I'm reference counting on the...
What if you have a plugin that's creating segmentation, that's
Right.
scheduled in 5 minutes,
Right.
and then when it's done, that is scheduled in 5 minutes again?
So I'm calling methods that are instance done and plugin done, and also there is a config reload.
It's totally possible to run a plugin on every connection.
Yeah, right.
But then the plugin does it forever, right?
Yes. No, but it's like,
How does that work with it? That would be problematic because you really want to save that thing to shut down because now you're reloading.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
a new thing that does periodic tasks.
it's-
And after 100 reloads, you have 100 of these.
right. So I think I had to choose between crashing and leaking plugins, so I thought,
Really kind of like what you want to do is that when you're doing a reload,
Yes. I swear you put it
it's
something.
not a life cycle, it's a remap load.
But this is going to not be sufficient just to remap the case you're discussing.
Right. It feels like the use case that you described is actually a problem where when you do the reload, you might tell these combinations that might be running forever or whatever, right? You stop doing
I mean, I imagine that when you say instance done, you would set a state inside that will, next time it will not call for the next 5 minutes ahead or something. Like you,
So this is not fundamentally different, right? The same shutdown procedure that shutdown platform microservice would use to tell that phone, hey, we're shutting down.
and the plugin can cancel the event.
You need to know whether it's being reloaded or not.
No, I mean, if you say instance done, instance is done. Right? Or that wasn't the idea. So this is only remap. I mean, I'll mention, I thought about actually doing the same thing for global plugins, but since it will take more work and time I decided to deliver something before that. Yeah, that's possible. Right, yeah.
So those are just watches that,
Right.
because you can't expect to
Yeah.
go ahead and make an internal request.
I mean, yeah, right. Right, yeah. I mean, but these are I cannot control, right. I mean, we cannot control all we probably have other cases in ATS that you need to know what you're doing when you schedule. And also, like we discussed with Leif, whether we need to reload on per session or transaction.
Well, I still don't understand the point that the red counter is fine.
And I'll show you.
Let me ask you one more
Yeah.
question.
Mhm.
So we have a plugin.
Mhm.
And it was the remap. So you see like a very old plugin, right? You see it with the red counter.
Right.
And then when that ATS is done, who decrements the red counter?
So the way I actually implemented it is that all the continuations that are created by the plugin, they increase the reference count. And when they are destroyed, they decrease. Because we want to make sure that all the continuations that are created by the plugin have something to run. Like they will not crash. The other thing is like these are like this. And then the plugin set actually has its own reference count on this set of plugins. So as long as that's loaded, everything will be ready to be used anytime. So the moment you destroy the structure, it decrements the thing and then it unloads. Right. But the thing is, there is this structure, the URL rewrite, the config, the one that you mentioned that we reference count. I consider it just like another user of this guy. So the relationship between this and the state machine is between them. So if we decide to reload on any transaction, this is where we make the change. If we decide to make it like per session, this is where we make the change. This code doesn't really care. So the plugin set is basically, I created a factory that is used to instantiate plugins. So it keeps track of everything inside. So it actually increases its own, basically make sure this is alive until it. So if we put this object in the URL rewrite, it will have the same lifetime. If we put it in somewhere else, like globally, it will have that lifetime. So it's true that there are two reference counters, but in fact, actually, this is yet another user of this. So it's like. If they don't have to? Yeah. Yeah. Right. But the thing is, then we need to identify who changed. And I consider having a version, like adding a version. Well, but the thing is, like somebody touches that and we we can agree. Yeah. No, since we decide, yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do. I thought doing MD5 and like these things too. Right. But the thing is, since we decided to have us like a separate copy, we kind of isolated the whole thing. So I said, all right, let's do it first, like in a kind of universal, without caring way. And okay. No, I don't think so. Yeah. Okay.
I would imagine like those SOs change once a month, right? Whereas the email might change that.
Okay. So yeah. So this is how the two instances of the same plugin look like, and this is actually what the global versus remap plugin looks like. Alan, you were asking. So yeah, that's currently the PR only supports remap. So this thing will load a different instance of the DSO, which is not related to the one that we load from. So the global ones will continue acting the way they are. The only change will be in the remap. But what I wanted to show with this slide is that I couldn't find any difference between the global and the plugin. Like after some point from the bottom up, it's like the same thing. And I studied some code and I saw like, well, we're doing the same thing for both plugins. And the way the reason I decided to rework the whole thing is that I'm hoping that we can reuse those objects for the global ones. Actually, I was planning to do that, but then like to have something working sooner, I thought.
Maybe we should discourage people from doing it to do it. Facebook uses that we're loading the remap on the global. Well, you get the fun for enterprise conditions in the long run, structure.
Right. This was my goal. I was actually hoping that I'll get done by, sooner. So, but the thing is, I realized it's the same thing. It's like a kind of a mess now. Like we have different things and they're similar, and there's no reason. Okay. Yahoo.
Give me an example of what all traffic dump. Traffic dump is a great example where you say, I want a traffic dump for iTunes.
For.
Well, no,
No, but I mean,
Or traffic come has to get the session started.
yeah.
You can't do that.
I mean,
You can roll the dice and dump that session.
no, I mean, I think,
No, because notice not, you go, I mean, even after the session is created, you still have access to the session, and you know it's the first session on that session.
no, but
Practice it, yeah.
I mean, we have hooks that are before the remap. So are we going to remove those hooks? I mean, those hooks can be used mainly from the global, right?
There's definitely some hooks that you can do in remap, but one is your is a good example. But it could be
No, I mean, why kill the? I think it's a nice functionality. I mean, maybe somebody will find a use case and say, hey, I want earlier than the remap. Then global is the only way to go, right?
right. So
Right.
protocol plugins are pretty
I mean,
But
What I'm just saying, I'm tempted to say that we should discourage the combo of global and
okay.
well, it's the info.
yeah. Well, that
I mean, cache key.
most of it will be into
Well, if you want to do that, what you should really do is only have global plugins, you can have reference.
Okay.
Except that right now you can't load them, so you can, you
Well,
want to do
we're
the.
talking about links that show the future here.
No, but I think
Like right now, you can't change configuration of the local plugin without.
right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, once we get to the point where all these things unify and you can reload them, then at that point it's no longer so useful to say everything's global and it wants to be referenced, for example, with this reference, for example. They all get loaded, unloaded, they all have. I can certainly regard it to say for the globals, we can easily add the delete instance.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it already exists like something like done and init and done.
Yeah, and it's not going to break any existing
I mean,
globals because if they don't set them up, then they don't set them up.
I mean, I think things can be hidden under, like this is like internals, right? So I think I can make it work the same way like before without.
My only concern is that, and I'm going to want to store this in this reload plugin. The problem is that you load it, say that the global version of it, it might have state variables and whatnot that are specific to that global instance and that. It expects that the remap plugin is using those same globals.
Yeah. Right.
But that's not going to be the
That's
case.
not case, yeah.
The case the first time.
Right.
But then upon reload, it gets all weird.
Actually, with this, it will not be the case even the first time.
Okay.
Because like this is like totally different.
It's so different. Yeah,
So I was thinking in a transition period, we can say this is totally different thing. And that one is like the old thing. So if you want to reload something, you use the remap. If it can, I mean, until I actually change it.
Saying that it could be unexpected behavior if you rely on the global and the remap version.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
but the end state here, I thought we were testing the end state, which is where you can reload all the plugins. So then your case goes away. That goes away. When you say reload, you go and do your.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a while, right? We need to have.
But I think
I mean-
the point was we can think that end state, make sure we're heading in that direction incrementally rather than saying.
And this is why what I want to show you, the DCO reference counting. So in this case, it didn't make much sense to me. Like if I use this is what I used to in the beginning, and now we have that. Why would I use this reference counting to count these guys? Basically, we have another global thing, different. Right, right. Right, yeah. Yeah. No, but this is another case where this is like, this object can be used by two other guys who hold increase the reference count, and until they are alive, this thing will not disappear.
You're right, Alex.
Okay, I'm wrong. Oh, all right.
Wow. I didn't have my phone on recording. So one detail that actually, when I started working, Leif pointed me to is that we use this magic here, the HTTP args. So it's an array that actually provides a way for plugins to store information. And it is supposed to be, I mean, there is a reserve function that reserves an index from that array, and that's usually called during load. And if we keep reloading, we'll run out of indices. And the change actually takes care of that by checking the plugin identifying name and returning the same index. And I think internal implementation actually also assumes something like that. So no, like if you request one, it will go inside in the core, like look for, I mean, one of the functions actually assume on that. It's like when it looks, it assumes that there will be one-to-one only. Yeah.
I guess if you're doing a format change like that, you're going to have to go through it for a while, really restart, and just have different identifiers. Because conceptually, right, what's changed is what agent is stored in that URL. Suppose that's the change in agent code.
That's a tricky one. Right. No, that's a tricky one. I don't know how to handle. Yeah. Change. Yeah, it's an incompatible change, so you cannot. Yeah. You need to change the name. Yeah. But it's. Right. I mean, I just need to document it. Because like, yeah, that's a thing that it wasn't easy to solve inside. So while rewriting some of the stuff, I found some things that I don't really understand. So it turns out this TS remap OS response is working only for the first plugin in the remap role. And the reason for that is we check, hey, is this the first? Yeah. I mean, no, it's a useful API, I mean, callback, but it's first one, yeah. So I was like, the code says if index is 0, then register this, and in the state, we actually have only one element to store, and this is the only one. Because like the way I did it is usually we have like instance handler, which is the data, and then the function to call with that instance handler. And I kind of changed the code to have like one object for both because they're meant to be used all the time. And then I wanted to change that piece of code to handle that in a new way. And then I was like, wow, it's only one, which is, I don't know why this is an open one. And then the other one is like, after I implemented things to work the same way for the remap config reload, but then I started thinking, well, that assumes that the plugin may outlive, the configuration will change more often than the reload. And,
remember how some of the plugins have this cache of configurations?
Right, yeah.
So the point being that you're using the same plugin configuration for
All.
rules. Instead of devoting that to like your 100 rules, you make a certain file system uses those to be very slow. Load it once, store it in my cache,
Right.
and then you can reuse that. Like, okay, well, when you do a reload,
That doesn't.
you need to empty that cache.
Right,
So
right.
what that thing was there to do was to say,
I see.
you can empty your cache, because that happens
Right.
before you load anything else. And then you have an empty cache, and then you're going to load it.
Build a new one.
For once.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's what you use it.
Okay. I mean, now with the reload, that's we are reloading always the conf with the reload with the new code. So will that be still? Because we start from scratch every time. No, I just wanted to mention that like maybe we can rethink or document all the. Right. But this goes since like with code change, like something. Oh, okay. So some of them will not change. Okay. Yeah. So it's still right. Okay. Well, the current implementation doesn't do that, so I didn't have that problem. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Cool. I mean, All right.
What is the TS remap OS response? How is that different than just going ahead and doing the response?
Basically, this is a callback that is
Why
called.
not just go ahead and add a response?
I don't know. It's
A lot of there's that show going live.
maybe yeah.
Why not just? I mean, it seems like everything's good.
Right. I mean, we have other.
Many of these things are kind of duplicated, right? And they were done because it was easy to make
I mean,
these entry points as well.
same. I mean, remap, right? Do remap is kind of similar. You can register. You can have. You can register something using a hook.
When is this called? I mean, Brian, relative to Brian, when exactly was that?
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't remember which hook, but I think it's around the time we get the response from the server, from the origin server. So it's probably on that hook. I just don't remember the details.
So why not just response parallel? So, I mean, I'm serious. I'm curious why we vanished.
I mean, I think there's nothing wrong to have that like a shortcut or like in a different way.
I don't even get a response. So if the origin server doesn't give you anything at all, read response will only be called if you have a response code. But this method we call you don't get a response from that. You get a timeout, you get a connection error. This method still get called. Now I can use this to tell you I actually have a connection to the origin, and then I can do something else. Yeah, so this is actually like my life-saving in some cases. When the origin goes down, I can still like keep a second lifeline to actually share something.
Yeah, I think we should remove the functionality that we're talking about earlier.
Okay. I mean, maybe we can make it just work for all the plugins, so people will not get unexpected.
Like plug-in, but if the slice plugin doesn't do anything, it's all like this. There's no code in there.
I mean, this is one way to solve it. I just didn't do it because I didn't know why we have it like that.
I
mean,
think look at why it's in there and maybe we can do better to give you the functionality.
I mean, if we decide to keep it, we should fix it.
Yeah, we should
Right.
fix it or does something that doesn't.
I mean-
It should be made to work correctly. and all
Right,
that.
right, yeah, that's it. So, future plans. So I'm hoping that to make global plugins reloadable using the same functionality, same classes. And while doing that, I'm hoping to clean some code and basically separate and modularize things better.
Right, I check out the PR. Like, I just want to ask: does it make sense for us to like put this behind like a configuration flag so that like by default it's off, and only when I want it then I want it? Because like it will be a annoying thing for things like Lua or later on maybe the JavaScript, right? Right now, what we do is when we do a ATS when we do the traffic CTL config reload. All I have to do is I actually just reload the JavaScript or reload the Lua script, and then like do all the context switching on my own for that, right? And my binary or actually the plugin binary actually never change. So whatever actually right now I have is actually good enough for me. Yeah. All right.
So if you add a new API to your Lua thing,
Then I have to restart. Yes.
So you can't do that for however long. So this is
Right, but if you get an API, then it's actually your you're getting a new version of ATS, then you have that, and
This kind of says you don't have to wait for the new version. That's kind of like, so this seems like the perfect, Lua and header rewrite are, it seems to me it would be a perfect case, because so you don't need to wait for the next rev of ATS, the next version of, to get your improvement to the Lua plugin to use the new feature, right?
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that way. Yeah, but I also just want to see, like, does it make sense to have just an enable flag to just try to turn it off and on so that I can keep the old behavior or versus the new, or we want to just think that, okay, this is sang and soiled and we want to bake it in and there's no need for such a flag for this?
I mean, in my opinion, I think we need to look into why you need to do that first, and if it's worth it. Then, because it's like another complication to like.
And this is an argument for this optimization. If you don't reload that SO if it hasn't changed, well, in your case, don't change your SOs.
Yeah. Yeah, I never
And then you
changed-
get that flag sort of implicitly. and you can even find a control. You can say, I do want to reload this one particular plugin, but none of the others. And then again, you do that with this optimization, and you have now you actually have a sort of implicit flag per plugin that you can control. And now it becomes an operational thing, right? Just make sure that you only push the SOs that you're willing to reload.
Yes, yeah, okay.
I mean, we can chat more. I just don't understand like enough, and I think I would rather not have the flag because, like, yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
I'll need to change things underneath to support that optimization because I do it in certain ways now. Assuming. Yeah.
You, Leif. Yeah, I think there's good optimization anyway, so I really think we want to do that, even though Leif suggested it.
Right. Any questions? Any other questions?
Why do you not have this?
I wanted to add some more testing, and I haven't tested it in production yet. I mean,
With the optimization,
I'll do it with the optimization. I mean, I want to test whatever I want, like the final thing. So I'll add the.
I'm generally okay if you're landing without optimization and your follow-up patch with the optimization. As long as we get it done before we branch on.
Oh, I mean, okay, yeah, all right.
Maybe just a little bit on
No, I just, I haven't done stress testing and all these extra things. I mean, functionally it works. I have unit tests that show that, but, and also functional tests that I did like by hand.
Yeah, I'd also like you to hook up with Faye here and look ahead to extending some of this to the global plugins for related to clean shutdowns.
Okay.
So it would be nice to at least have planning for that so we can see
I mean,
how to
I
do
think-
that going ahead.
Right, I mean, I think we can reuse that functionality. It's not that hard to just use the same. We need to decide where to put this
Yeah.
set object, the factory thing.
Yeah, well, I was thinking more about some of the API because we could easily add this in a non-compatibility breaking way to say, here, there's the other extra hook or hooks or whatever that you can do to do the unload. And then it's backwards compatible because if you don't hook them, well, it behaves the same as it does now.
Right.
So, but I'd like to, if you could talk to Faye and get some planning on that, that would be good.
And we also talked about having parents continuation references so we can track things. I didn't
Yeah, but
actually
it
do
looks
that
to me like
because-
you're 90% of the way there. I mean, once you've got this
Right,
context
right, but
object.
I didn't do it because that wasn't necessary for this use case, and we can actually think about changing that if.
Yeah, although, I mean, if you've got this, if you've got your context, you know.
Right, no, exactly, but it's like I didn't need it, so I don't know enough about what you guys want to do. So
Yeah, no, we'll want to look at that
For this, it
too.
was actually I needed a reference to the DSO. And,
Yeah, see, I think where I'd go from this is looking at the introspection API, because you've got that context. It would be really nice to have API to let the plugins look through that, if you see what I mean, right? Anyway, yeah, so, yeah, that'd be good.
Right, we can.
Just another sign up. So in the global plugin, there's like a hook called there's a function called a TS MGMT update register. so that you can hook a function to through this call, so that when you have traffic CTL reload, then this function will be called. So in this case, then there's no need for such a function anymore, or something.
I mean, is this only for global?
Yeah, this is mostly for global. Yeah, so basically you can call this function and you can register a function to get call when the traffic CTL reload happens. So are we going to just say we nuke this one as well? If you have these things for the global plugin.
With the optimization, you're not going to reload the SO, but you still might want to say, watch this config file that's being modified, right? And
right,
then,
but then now the entry point is traffic CTL config reload, right?
Right.
So now when you say traffic CTL config reload, you reload the SO.
no,
No.
only if the SO changed. Remember, that's the optimization.
Okay, I see.
Now it is in this version.
If
it
the
is,
SO doesn't change, I still want to get that
you
function
still need
call.
to have the callback
Okay.
to when you do the
All right.
config
I mean,
reload.
All right.
I'm thinking I'll do the reload now so we can have the functionality there and we can actually talk about all the like extra use cases and see how to do it in a, maybe.
You have the option though, if you don't want to deal with that sort of config reload in a plugin, let's say you have a custom plugin,
Right.
well then your choice is to just touch the .so, right, and then you do traffic CTL reload.
Yeah.
And that will force the config reload and as you load in the SO, right?
Okay.
So we have a lot of options around sort of how to
I mean, we
manage
can
our configs and the SOs and without any additional configurations.
I still keep compatibility with this reload config thing, so I can actually try to keep a compatibility with the existing call and global plugins, right?
Oh, yeah, I think you need to.
Right, so-
especially with optimization, you're absolutely
Right,
going to need
right.
to.
So we can still, I mean,
Yeah.
that will not change for you.
I'm just saying he has a lot of options.
Right.
Without any additional configurations and right. No, we're not taking that away. We can't.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm sorry. It's not my fault. You wanted me to take your spot, so you just want to say this.